Hey, board members, it's 4 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Our first item is our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
The mission of Marshall Public Schools is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. A motion to approve. Do we
So
have a
moved.
second?
Oh, second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. The agenda is approved. Public forum. Anybody in the public would like to approach the board? Now's your time. You gonna save yours for the paper, Mike? Okay. Moving on to our presentation. Title programs. Jim, it's always a pleasure.
Okay, well, thanks for having me here, and good afternoon to everyone. So just to give you just a little background, so when I started over at Westside Elementary as the principal there, one of the duties was as a title coordinator for the Marshall Public Schools. So when I signed up for this here, I really look at it as just as much of a learning opportunity for myself to learn more about the title program. It's something that I've definitely worked with throughout my educational career, but it's not something that I've really dove into like I've started diving into this year. So it's been a really good learning experience, and definitely one thing I've learned is I got a lot more to learn about it. So if I could, let's see, I'll just kind of just overall have the broad statement of there, but it's for the U.S. Department of Education. It's to ensure that all children have a fair and equal and significant opportunity to obtain a high quality education. Basically the philosophy behind the title program itself. It was originally started in 1965 under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act is where this came from. It does say that the title funds are meant to supplement and not replace anything of a school system. So whatever we have in our school system, title is really to support that in all areas of title. I want to talk just a little bit about the Title I, the Title II, the Title III, and the Title IV, which is actually brand new this year, well, probably, but it's been just started to be used this year. And then we'll talk a little bit about how the Marshall Public Schools uses the title program itself. So real quickly, just to overcap the Title I part of it. It's definitely the biggest part of the title program compared to Title II, Title III, which is a little bit smaller, and Title IV, which is brand new. So most of the time when we talk about title, we're actually talking about Title I in most cases. It actually leaves the biggest footprint on our school or any other school. I've been in a few other districts, and Title I is definitely the dominant part of the title program there. It is meant to meet or address specific needs for our students. And, for example, the one thing that we have is a whole host of assessments. And so when we look at our Title I program, we're really trying to meet the needs of the students who are furthest from proficiency. So actually, if you asked over at Parkside or at Westside, what's happening with the title program, where we're identifying all our students and where they meet on a certain axis, and then we're taking the students that are farthest from proficiency and trying to move them up the line there to go from our title program. Since it is a federally funded program, that we have to apply for this title program every single year. This is just some examples of some guiding questions, and this serves for two purposes in my thinking anyways. Well, first of all, we need to start thinking about our title program about a year in advance, and so we will apply for the title funds that come up. And from this list of questions, we can start looking at how is our title program going to be monitored, what are we going to do for it. So it'll just give us some ideas of what we're going to do, whether it could be a goal for reading, how is this title program going to supplement maybe, our programs, whether it's in a reading program, or what do we want to use for supplemental materials or things like that, and teachers. So it just gives us a good idea of the direction we exactly want to go. And probably of all the programs in the school system, Title I, you'll find it's really very laser focused on exactly what we want to do with it. I think one thing that's big with the Title I program is the parent involvement. I'll just give you kind of a couple examples here. Right away, we do need to make sure that if we're working, so right now we're a targeted title program over at Westside. So when we're working with parents, we need to make sure that they're aware that our title teachers are working with them. And we also send out parent notifications so they're up to date on what's happening. We often share at conferences and things like that, some assessment scores and how their son or daughter is doing in the title program, what improvements they've made throughout the year. Also, title really focuses on parent involvement with a parent night, family night for a title. So this would be some of the examples. Usually our title night has a specific focus. This year it was just to let the parents know about the assessments that we were using this year. But it could be, how could we get a home reading program going? What type of literacy training can we give parents that they are in turn able to give their son or daughter? It's just, to kind of create that involvement and create that network of working together with each other. So something that I really like a lot about the Title I program. So moving on to Title II, it's actually a little bit broader. It was originally intended to be a professional development. So we'd be looking at ways that we can either professionally develop our teachers or professionally develop our administrators in this title program. There's a couple caveats that go with that there. So if we're going to do something in professional development, it does need to be research-based. So we need to exactly know, and this comes apart with the writing of the grant at the beginning of the summertime or in July, somewhere around that time frame. Title II is for professional development, but it can also be used for a couple other things. It can be used for recruiting and retention of teachers, and then it could also be used for class size reduction. Throughout my experience anyways, that's where a lot of Title II dollars go to, is for the class size reduction. Title II just gives us another example of some guiding questions that we look at towards that July time frame, and then we're able to start implementing that throughout the school year. Next one is Title III. I'm pretty comfortable with Title III, working the last 2 years as the EL coordinator. Basically, this is just to ensure that all of our EL students or ELL students in this program and it's enabled to support the EL part of the teaching for our teachers. So it might be an example where they need something to support this curriculum. They might be working on it. Maybe they need more books to enhance it. Sometimes we look at a lot of interest from our EL students and what can we get them, and that could come out of the Title III. So it's just kind of a big host, but it's also just mostly for our EL students. Title III also has some guiding questions. So once again, that's filled out by the EL coordinator, and then they prepare and move forward throughout the school year. So brand new this year, or brand new working with it this year. I guess technically we could say it kind of started last year, but we just got wind of it all this year. But the Title IV grant is basically, when someone asked me about this, I just got done working with the 3 private schools in town. So we really summed it up into, A, well-rounded education, B, health and safety, or C, technology, what would be the areas. And then once you really get into it, there's certain percentages that have to go certain places for this Title IV. But I can give you some examples of, let's see, of a well-rounded education for the students. It could be along the lines of, accelerated, gifted. It could be a STEM. It could be another world language or something. And basically, from my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this here, but it's basically an enhancement program that's new to our curriculum, something that we would like to put in, something that we've wanted to do for quite a while, and now we have some extra funds to do that. So it's also with the safe and healthy students. So we could look at, the stranger danger type things. We could look at something enhanced in our PE program. We could look at certain incentives and things like that. And then, of course, technology gives us a whole broad range of gamuts that we could run through for our students. So Title IV is brand new this year, and we looked at working at it soon. Just to give you a quick rundown on our title programs, Parkside Elementary, they have 3 title teachers, and we're kind of with our balanced literacy approach moving to the term interventionists with them because they'll be working with the students so much. This is the first year that Parkside Elementary is going into a school-wide program, so they're just kind of starting to get their feet into that, and then they'll have to expand from there. We're following behind and looking at doing that at Westside next year. Westside Elementary is targeted services right now. We serve about 38 students, and then we reevaluate those students every quarter. And then we have 2 title teachers on staff at Westside Elementary. Holy Redeemer School has 2 half-time teachers, and then True Light has 1 half-time teacher, and they are encompassed under our title program, so I kind of help them manage that. The last thing I wanted to do, just as I touched in a little bit on the school-wide program, is I just wanted to, right now, mostly what we've had in Marshall since I've been here anyways, and I'm assuming that was happened that way quite a time before, was the Targeted Assistance Program, which is more focused on individual students, and it's also more focused on those students that are over here and looking to move them on there. So then there's just a little bit of difference between school-wide, which gives us a little bit of flexibility and allows us to look at our title program a little bit differently. So a couple of things, when we look at targeted assistance, we specifically identified students. And then when you look at school-wide, no students are identified. It can basically service all students if needed. Targeted assistance students are mostly at risk, and they use that there by low-income families. Is the students at each school has to be a certain percentage of, certain percentage high of, I think it's above 40 of students under the poverty line or something like that. And then that's how you can identify with target assistance. With the school-wide, it's just basically focused on instructional improvements of the program. Let's see, just a couple other things there for targeted. It's an ongoing process of monitoring, so we're constantly monitoring those 38 students or however many you have identified, and we continue to monitor that. And with school-wide, we continuously do a comprehensive needs assessment for the school. School-wide targeted, parents are notified of the students that are eligible for title services, and then with school-wide, there's no parent notification because we can technically serve all students. Both of them, whether what we're doing school-wide or targeted, we have to continue with the science-based research. Doing that, we have to still have professional development for our teachers, for our staff. We must provide that additional learning time because, regardless where we're at with the title time, we need additional time for our students there. And then there's always an emphasis placed on parent involvement, even though that's more direct with the target services. We still want parent involvement in that. So that's what I have for our title program here at Marshall. Any questions that I could answer for you?
Budget-wise, have you heard anything from the feds of whether we'll get the same amount or what's happening at the federal level?
I don't know. Dion, have I heard that at all? Or I don't think we haven't heard anything yet.
It's been steady. A few years ago, we thought we were going to get less, but it's a little increase each year. Nothing sporadic.
And really, Russ helps us a lot with the budget specifically, so we really lean on him to help us with that area.
And you have to write the grant beginning of summer for next year?
Yeah, right around that July time frame is when I submit it.
You meet with a regional rep for that? Just send
Nope.
it in to state?
Just send it in, yep. Well, it actually goes through a 2-part process. I put the educational part in, and then it goes through the finance part of it all also. There's a budget calculation worksheet that's with that, and then once both sides are approved, I think Mr. Munson has the final okay button on that, and then it sends off to the state.
Question on school-wide rather than targeted service, is it a new opportunity? Is it a new allowance by the feds to go
No,
school-wide?
it's exactly the same dollars, so how you choose to use those would be the same whether you're targeted services or school-wide. I think one of our pushes towards school-wide is with the balanced literacy. It kind of makes a little bit more sense, and school-wide would be like with any other program. It's going to take a while to really get it to look like a school-wide.
I don't mean trick questions
Nope,
here,
nope,
just
nope.
different from when
Yep.
I was there.
Nope. No, it's been a good learning process too. I know Jeremy worked on it a lot last year, and then being new over at Westside, I kind of wanted to start over from ground zero and work with that program. So,
And our funds have been able to take care of the teachers that we have, the TEs that we have. We haven't had to cut.
Basically the same over the last couple of years now.
Very good. Thanks,
okay,
Jim.
thank you guys.
Moving on to our next presentation, the Marshall Resident Survey.
Hi, Todd. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
To introduce myself, my name's Todd Rapp. I own a communications company up in the Twin Cities. I've probably worked for 40 school districts in the upper Midwest, helping them think through communications challenges. Often it's associated with a public referendum. Right now, the partnership I'm part of, most of all, is I work with the ICS team. They bring me in as a subcontractor to help school districts such as yours think through communication strategy. As part of that, occasionally school districts go out and do surveys of the public. It's one of the many good ways of bringing in public input into a plan. You're just not going to reach everybody through a community meeting or here at a school board meeting or through some of the other ways. And so often you will see surveys such as this done. There's two basic ways of doing these surveys. Number one would be a telephone survey, which reaches people both with landlines and with cell phones. A second way of doing this is to do an online survey, which is often complemented with a mail option for people if they want to pick up a copy or get a copy of the survey sent to them. You chose to do the online survey, the mail option, and you got a lot of people to respond, so I'm going to walk through what those results look like. It was a 40-question online survey conducted in February. Advertising was done through the entire school community beyond just the staff and the parents, through email, newspapers, and social media. But I do have to tell you right now, this is not a scientific sample. The difference between this type of survey and a phone survey is that in a phone survey, you work towards a sample that reflects the demographics of the entire community, where here, the respondents are self-selected. I decide I want to take it. Pat decides he doesn't want to take it, and that's just fine. But it would be inappropriate to take these results and say that we can predict that they are reflective of the entire community. They're simply reflective of the people who took the survey, although a lot of people did. Okay? A total of 877 people started the survey, 625 completed the survey, which is a pretty large sample of people. You'll notice that basically any parent and any staff member who began the survey completed it. But interestingly, only about, barely over 15% of community members who started the survey completed it. And of those 301, 49 finished it, 252 did not, and most of those 252 stopped after the third or fourth question. Okay, so they got into it and made the decision, I don't want to take the entire survey. I think the entire survey, if you took it from start to finish and only gave a couple of answers to each of the open-ended questions, it would only take about 10 to 12 minutes. But there is a pretty high stop and get off rate in any community. I don't think I've seen it this high in quite a while. What does that tell us? I'll leave it to each of you to develop your own theories on that. One of the questions we did ask, and what I've done for almost every question I'm going to show you, is that in the far left column it will say how everyone responded. Then staff, then parents of school age or preschool children who are not staff, and then finally community members, which means everybody else. But remember, that's only n equals 49 people. The question of how would you rate the quality of education provided by the Marshall Public Schools? Overall, it was 90% positive, 36% excellent, 54% good. That's pretty high marks, even with a survey that is focused primarily with the respondents being from staff or from parents. The community also gave you very high marks, 88%. Anytime you go out and ask the community to approve some kind of public project that requires a bond and requires a tax increase, the first question people are going to ask is, are we doing a good job right now? And the answer is, for the people who responded to the survey, yes. We also asked if you think the quality of the school building impacts learning. 84% overall said yes. You'll note that staff, not surprisingly, had the highest percentages. 66% said a lot, 29% said it affects it some. Parents of school age or preschool, 82%, gave one of those two positive results. But in the community even, it was 68% saying either it affects it a lot or affects it some. We also gave we asked people to give each of the buildings a quality rating, excellent, good, just fair, or poor. Then we put that on a 100-point scale. If a building received a score of 100, it means that everybody gave it excellent. And if it got a score of minus 100, it means everybody said poor.
Quality in terms of what, Pat?
Well, it's quality in terms of what the person believes makes for a quality building. But we asked this question immediately after we asked whether or not the quality of a school building affects learning. So typically speaking, the respondents would be thinking about it in the context of that question. Okay? You'll note that the high school gets very high marks. The middle school and the Parkside both get solid marks, and strong marks, I would say. You'll notice the west sides are consistently negative marks regardless of who the audience is. There's a real understanding that west side is the building with the problem. Okay? We also asked about the tech, and that got mixed results depending on who was responding. Do you believe Marshall Public Schools needs a plan to improve our current school facilities, including safety and security improvements, replacing older classrooms, and updating our buildings to meet today's needs? As you can see, overall, 88% said yes, 48% said strongly yes. Staff had an even stronger, more intense response there. The parents of school age or preschool children had responses very consistent with the public as a whole. The community, though, even, it was 74% saying yes. Now, I'm sorry, it says here parents who agree with. That should say residents who agree with. My apologies for that mistake. But here, what this slide shows you is that there's 3 different ways we ask whether the plan aligns with people's expectations. The first was after we described the plan, we said, does this meet our needs? The second is we described the overall price of $29.8 million. And the third was we said on the average house an increase of $7.50 a month. Does that seem like a fair price? And these are all the people who agreed with that, and as you can tell, pretty consistent answers as you go down the columns among the different subsections of the community. And you notice that among the 49 members of the community as a whole who responded, a slight majority said yes. That's a pretty good sign in terms of the people responding to this survey that they believe you hit the mark on your plan. On the question of, we read a few different statements to ask people if they agreed or disagreed with the statement. There's a few more of them that you can see on the full results. I'm highlighting a couple of those just because of what they show you about what the public thinks about the plan. This first one is we should make do with the schools we have instead of building new ones. Here, as you can tell, looking across here, there's pretty substantial disagreement that we should just make do with the ones we have and open to building new ones. But you'll notice among the community a little bit closer there than maybe some of the results we've seen earlier. Another statement we said was West Side is simply too old. It makes more sense to replace it than to continue to try to remodel and repair it. There, as you see, 77% overall agreed, much stronger support among staff, solid support among the parents, and in the community members, it was 55% agreed, only 28% disagreed. Now you'll notice that the percentages don't always add up to 100%. When they don't, that means some people answered, they're not sure, and on a rare occasion, somebody just skipped the question and went on to the next one. I'm glad the school board came up with a less expensive plan than the spring 2017 referendum. It shows they're listening to the community. 82% overall agree. Again, strong among the staff, strong among the parents, even strong among the community. Across the board, this was the statement where there was the most unanimity. Voters have turned down 2 bond requests in the past few years. The board shouldn't waste time on another referendum. As you can see, overwhelming disagreement with that. You're not getting a level of referendum fatigue in your community, which is sometimes seen around the state. Our community receives a good value from its investment in Marshall Public Schools. 80% agree with that statement, 91% of staff, 76% of the parents, and even 67% of the community members. Those are pretty good marks among the people who responded to the survey. And the Marshall School District Board and Administration do a good job of involving community leaders, parents, and interested citizens in decisions about schools. 70% strongly agree. Staff, 72%, the parents, 67%, the community is 59%. This is kind of a bellwether question. I began with a bellwether question, which was, do we have a high quality of education? Now the bellwether question is, does the board and administration do a good job of involving the community? Let me show you why. And we're going to go to look at those 2 columns with the figures. The middle column there says are people who agree that the Marshall School District does a good job, and the far right column is those who don't agree you do a good job of involving the community in your decisions. If you agree the school district does a good job, 90% of you will say taxpayers receive a good value from their investment. If you don't agree that the district does a good job involving the community, only 54% of you think that taxpayers receive a good value. If you agree the school district does a good job, then 80% of you say this plan sounds like a good value. If you don't agree, only 49% say it does a good value, and you'll notice that 17% in that case are undecided. If you agree the Marshall School District does a good job involving the community, 47% of you would favor nearly any new tax income for education. Whereas if you don't agree, only 18% of you support the increase. The better job you do of communicating on a regular basis year-round with your residents, the more likely they will support the plans you put forward towards voters. So, final thoughts. This is really good input, even if it's not a scientific sample. The idea that you've gone out, you've got 625 people to give you that input. You can use that along with the other types of input that you're receiving right now to help give you a good direction as to where people think about this plan. The more engaged people are, the more supportive that they will be. That's true in just about every school district that I've worked with. But finally, remember the referendum elections are still hard to predict. You don't know how many voters are going to turn out. You don't know what different political influences there are out there. So I try to remind school boards when I talk to them, don't let a survey serve as your bet as to what's going to happen. It helps inform you what people are thinking, but you still need to be out there communicating, listening to their concerns, providing those answers, helping people understand the direction you're going to go. With that, I can answer any questions you'd have.
How does this rate in terms of the others that you do? How did we fare?
Numbers were pretty good. I begun with the quality of education. They're pretty good. A second thing that I noted was the focus that there's one building that really needs a lot of work. That was pretty unique from in my work with other school districts. I think that they're, even though a lot of the respondents here, most of the respondents were staff or parents, still the connection they have with this is where our money needs to go. The third thing that was unique was that question we asked you've already gone out twice before, why are you going out again? That kind of idea. And that was just about rejected by everybody, whether it was staff or parents or the community. And that was surprising in a very positive way, because sometimes communities do get referendum fatigue over time. I think your community is just waiting till they see what the right plan is the way it looks to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board forum? Board members, anything you'd like to bring up?
Just would remind everybody, Pride in the Tiger banquet's April 13th. So if you are interested and want to attend, it would be great for board members to go.
Legislative update, if I can just take a couple minutes. We received some new information today about the House budget target and some of their plans. We're still waiting to see the details on the Senate budget target, but you might remember that the governor's budget target came in, I think, right around $720 million. The House is at $900 million, and the Senate total is $207 million. So obviously there's a lot of discrepancy between those two, and three, I should say, and now negotiations start. A lot of what I'll be able to share with you is sort of the governor and House perspective, because there are, at least right now, limited details about what the Senate plans to do in terms of both policy and funding. So in the House and governor's version so far of what we've seen, there is proposed funding increases for special education and also some paperwork reduction and some of those things that we're well aware of. There is funding to increase school safety and also for increased flexibility with existing funds that we currently get through long-term facilities maintenance, so kind of taking from one place of funds that we already receive and saying, well, now you can spend these on school safety if you want. I believe that both the House and the Governor support ongoing funding for the school readiness and voluntary pre-kindergarten seats that were opened up 2 years ago that we're still hoping continue into next year and beyond. Snow day bill was passed out of conference committee last Friday, I believe it was, Thursday or Friday, and we anticipate that the governor will sign it or did sign it today, but as of the start of the meeting, I've not heard anything about that happening. We're really, Dion and I met today and had a bunch of different questions and even some new ones that came up today. So we're really waiting for clarification on what everything means. In both the House and Governor's proposals, there are several new and oftentimes unfunded mandates. However, I think there's also additional flexibility that might be included with some of those. The changes that we've been hearing about relative to the Professional Educators Licensing Board, and that's only been in place for a year. I think those stand a pretty good chance of moving forward. They're supported by both the Governor and the House. There's been some discussion about, I'm going to call it fully paid family leave, but extending paid family leave for staff members, and even in the information that we received today, I'm not sure if there's an allocation to school districts statewide to cover that cost, or if we're supposed to incur that cost on our own. So we'll wait for clarification on that and certainly see what happens with the Senate. And then in both the House and Governor's information, there are proposed increases to the Ag to School tax credit. I believe it's proposed to increase to 70% instead of 40%. So again, we'll wait and see. But those were some of the main ones that I kind of pulled out of what I read this morning and this afternoon, and we'll continue to follow that. And hopefully later this week or early next week, we'll be able to get some of the details that the Senate might be proposing and try to pull everything together and see if there's some commonalities or if they're vastly different on other things. And certainly between now and the end of the session, they have a lot of work to do. I don't know if there's anything that board members have heard that they'd like to share, but feel free to do that.
I just got an email like a half hour ago from Senator Dames after I had written him. It says, we heard the bill that would change the tiered licensure program in the E12 committee. It was held over and will not be moved any further. So it won't go any further in the Senate, it sounds like.
Didn't come out of committee. But the question on the calendar, Scott, if the governor signs, how does that impact changes we made?
We're still trying to figure that out, Bill.
Okay.
There's districts that have indicated already that if the governor signs it, they will not be using or need to use any forgiveness days. There's districts that I've seen as high as 8 days they plan to forgive, and everything in between. So we really need to sit down and figure out what that means for us.
Did they take the caps off of what they were going to forgive? I think in one of the versions they were talking about 2, and then I think the House version had none.
Yep, they in conference committee, they removed the caps.
One district lost 13 days.
Yep. Was it? Good. That's good to know.
1 year, though.
Right. We have another winter like this for another superintendent, so.
You missed a couple of those snowstorms, though.
I know. I'm going to try to do that next year, too.
All right. Moving on. Commissioner review and comment. Anybody have any comments on that?
If I can, Jeff, I'll share some information. You have a 3-page document that is essentially the review and comment response that we received in March from Commissioner Ricker from the Minnesota Department of Education. A couple things I would highlight. On the first page, she is essentially telling us that we need to publish a summary of the review and comment, and that's been done, I believe, already. I think Tricia took care of that. Secondly, requires the school board to hold a public meeting to discuss the review and comment prior to this date of the bond referendum. This is the public meeting. We'll certainly incorporate a lot of that into our public meeting that will take place on Monday, April 29th at West Side, beginning at 7 p.m. as well. Page 2 is just an overview of the 6 sections of information that, if you haven't read the review and comment, that page shows what's included in the review and comment. A lot of information. I think it's a 30-some page document and really lays everything out. And then on the last page, I just highlight the Commissioner's review and comment statement that says, among other things, basically after analyzing the school district's required documentation and other pertinent information from sources of the Minnesota Department of Education, the Commissioner of Education provides a positive review and comment. So certainly that's what we anticipated and hoped for, but it's always good to get that affirmation from the Commissioner.
Questions? Referendum update.
Mr. Overham, would you like to talk at all about what's going on, or would you like me to?
I'll let you go for it.
I appreciate that not, but so a lot going on. I just referenced that on Monday, April 29th at 7 p.m. we will be holding a public informational meeting at West Side in the gymnasium, I believe. That same evening at 6 o'clock, if there's anybody that's interested, and we'll certainly get word out about this, beginning at 6 o'clock, folks can wander around the building, or they can have sort of guided tours to see different things if they want to become more familiar with some of the challenges that we have at West Side. We'll be giving guided tours beginning at 6, or like I said, they can wander around. After the meeting, we plan to have different folks there. Someone from Ellers will be there to answer tax impact specific questions or financing questions. We hope to have someone there from our architectural firm to discuss anything specific relative to the questions that folks might have. I think Pat is planning to be there, or someone from ICS, if there are questions about the timing or anything like that. And those will be after the public meeting. Other things happening with the referendum, we're really trying to get geared up with different meetings and presentations, distributing information at different school events, distributing the fast facts information to parents. I know I was at Parkside and did that last week, I believe it was. Social media, we're starting to continue, I shouldn't say starting, continuing to get information out about that. The website, again, if you haven't checked that out, it's a very good source of information, investinginastrongfuture.org. Required mailing will come out, Tricia, next week, I believe. 2 weeks, okay, prior to, I think, April, or right around April 15th. Early voting opened up on Friday between 8 and 4 here in the district office. Don't know, nor do I need to, if we've had anyone vote early, but that is happening now through May 13th. So a lot of various actions taking place just to continue to try to best inform people and let them know what's going on.
I think your April 29th meeting at Westside is an excellent idea, and maybe the paper could pick up on that to invite our public in to take a look at Westside to actually see the needs, because it'll be a good opportunity that evening, April 29th, for our public to come and see.
Very good. Preliminary final budget comparison. Anybody have any questions on? You want to take that?
I just wanted to lay it out there. The next meeting on the 15th, we'll ask for your approval on the final budget. The attached is a comparison to the original, which Bruce did back in May, I believe, presented in June compared to the final budget, but wanted you to be able to see it ahead of time prior to approving April 15th.
Ian, will you go through a little bit more detail? Not now, but on the 15th?
Yeah, I
Okay.
will. Yep.
That's what I thought. I just wanted
And
to
as you look at some of these numbers, to just kind of lay it out, Some of the revenue actually is affected by what the ADMs were projected at the beginning of the year and where we're at now. And then there's a couple of things that Bruce and I do a little different that might not match up on this report, and I'll explain that. So.
Very good. Fund balance, Dion?
This again was just to show you guys very preliminary budget for 1920. Projected deficit spending for the general fund is at $340,653. This again will be worked on, so that number will probably change, and it will be presented to the board on June 5th, 3rd. The first meeting in June is when I'll present it.
Very good. This is our second reading of policies 530, 534, and 540. Did anybody have any additional questions or comments? Moving on to action items, approval of the health insurance bids. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Open for discussion.
So every 2 years, we have to go out to RFP for our health insurance, and we had a good response by the vendors, and we're asking, so basically, NIS is our the vendor that helps us with the RFP. Their recommendation is to stay with SWWC, the insurance pool. We had an insurance meeting, which the insurance committee meeting, which they also agreed with that. It was the lowest proposal, which was a 4.7% increase. And I didn't put it on there, but the trend is around 5.5%. So we felt, as the committee and as the district office, Gwen and I felt like that was a fair proposal.
Very good. Let's vote, please. It is approved. Approval of purchase of van for food service in the district. Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It is open for discussion. This is to replace the one that was wrecked.
No, actually, this is a different one. This is a van that is used by Taher to deliver meals to Maytech from the high school. It's a 1995 van that is piling up on repairs. And so just to let you kind of give you an idea, I didn't put an amount on there because I didn't know for sure, but if you look at the final budget, the expenditures for food service is actually down from the original with the cost of the van in it. So we'll see an excess in the fund balance, plus food service has pretty extensive fund balance that we'll be paying for this out of. We'll be purchasing it from Lockwood Motors. It's a used 2009 van, if you approve it, of course.
Very good. Any other questions?
This will be paid for the balance, of food service balance?
Food service, correct.
Okay.
Call for a vote, please. It is approved. Authorization to advertise and hire a .5 FTE English learner position.
So moved.
Second.
Open for discussion.
Go ahead, Deanne.
Jeremy and Elizabeth, or Beth, had put together some numbers for our estimated EL students for next year, and Westside had the highest teacher-student ratio. And so what we're doing, again, there's not an amount on here because this should zero out. We have had some carryover dollars from Title III, and we're able to use those Title III carryover dollars for a portion of Beth's EL coordinator position, which will free up some basic skill funds, which is what's used to pay for the EL teachers. So we're basically using carryover money that we've had, and Beth will budget that amount in, so we'll be able to use that each year. So we're not spending anything over what we have.
Very good. Call for a vote, please. It is approved. Approval of memorandum of understanding with Cheryl Hinn. Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just answer any questions that I might. Most of what you would need to consider is included in the MOU.
Pretty self-understanding. Now call for a vote.
I apologize. I was trying to close out of the document and closed out. Give me 1 second.
Is that tie, Aaron? You're not
Yep.
used to it.
Wasn't me this time, Aaron, thank you.
It's hard to type under pressure.
I got you too.
I'm good. I can type under pressure.
It is approved. Moving on to our personnel, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Need a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Thank you, board members. Meeting is adjourned.